Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Karen Flushman, and I am president of Loyola University's Black Alumni Association. And I want to welcome you to our sixth installment of the Blacklight Speaker Series. Today, we have an amazing event prepared for you. We have just an outstanding presenter, as well as an excellent moderator. And so today, the title of the event is Detoxing from the Poison of Systemic Racism. And what we will be highlighting in this session of the Blacklight Speaker Series is how the ecosystems in the US as well as global have broken down as it relates to specifically the Black community. And Dr. Mitchell is going to talk, quite a bit about that, during his presentation. As I stated again, thank you. We really appreciate your time, and we're get ready for an exciting event. I always like to start these presentations with a thank you, and the reason for that is that this is not a corporate event, where people are getting paid to do this work. This is, this type of event is put together by volunteers, individuals who are very passionate and committed, highly talented professionals who are committed to making Loyola a better place for all students. And so with that, with our journey through building the Black Alumni Board, we have been fortunate, I should say, to connect to some really amazing individuals who have helped us move the needle forward, if you will. Either they've helped us through financially or through their resources as well as their network. So we really appreciate their commitment, to the success of the Black Alumni Association. Also, we've also connected with some amazing individuals and organizations that have helped us to basically kind of understand, what are some of the best practices as it relates to alumni boards. And then also we've connected with some amazing resources internally within the university that have provided us access to their departments, as well as their students and also their staff. And most importantly, they provided us access to their expertise. And then also I have here, we've been fortunate enough to, connect with one of our most esteemed alumni, Jerry Hartness, and Jerry was gracious enough to provide his book and the signing of his book to the graduating students of the Black Cultural Center. And we're very grateful for him for that. And then we're also looking at ways that we can work with him more extensively. Also, I talked about connecting outside of the university. I mean, we've basically gotten a partnership with Northwestern. We've connected with Southern Illinois, Governor State. And so, it's been really an amazing journey, if you will, as it relates to the Black Alumni Board over the last 2 years. Next, what I like to do is to just show you this is your board. This is your Black Alumni Board. These individuals are working tirelessly to ensure two things. One is that the Black students at Loyola University have a much better experience in terms of access to scholarships, as well as their daily lives within the university, that they feel comfortable and they feel welcome in the university environment. So we're working tirelessly to make that happen. As well, and as equally as important, is the Black alumni like ourselves, really coming back to the university to, connect with university resources, if you will, to be able to share their expertise, again, and it's all about making Loyola a better place for everyone. So we have some individuals for the last, I'd have to go back 2.5 years, when I really think about it. I mean, they've committed, their hearts, if you will, to building out these type of activities whereby we have the ability to highlight or to illuminate our Black alumni, so that the university and the community, the Black community, actually the University of Loyola at large, they understand what the amazing things that the alumni are doing postgraduate. So that's very important. So again, this is your alumni board, again, working tirelessly on your behalf. And it has been, truly, my honor, to work with these individuals, because, they are committed. The amount of time and amount of resources that they spend in terms of ensuring that these events happen, and then also ensuring that their voices are heard within various committees within the university. It's very, very impressive, to see what this board can do and is doing, I should say. Next, we have extended, our group of volunteers. We have committee members who also are dedicating their time and their expertise in individual areas, specifically like building a scholarship fund, as well as building out our social media platform to ensure that more Black alums are connected to the university. So, we're grateful for this expansion, and these individuals have been and will be just a tremendous asset as we design and execute on even more programs for the alumni as well as the Black students. So this is just very highlight of some of the objectives and some of the activities that we're working on. I already talked about, expanding alumni engagement. That's critically important. And we've actually seen that as a result of the Blacklight speaker series. We've been able to connect some of the presenters, if you will, and the speakers, to various schools within the university, where they had the opportunity to showcase their expertise, if you will. So that's been very exciting to watch. Also, I talked about the scholarship. You'll learn more about that, as we move and get closer to the through Alumni Weekend. We're hoping to make some, really big announcements, as well as to have, a much more substantial presentation at the Alumni Weekend than we've ever had before as a affinity group. So we're really excited about that. And then also we're looking to the feedback from the series, the Blacklight Speaker Series, has been so positive, and people have been basically saying for each topic they want more. So we're going to be expanding the Blacklight Speaker Series to include podcasts so that the conversation can continue. And so we're really excited about that. And then, we have one of our board members, Shakira Richards, and also Jay Yancey. They are both involved in the racial justice exam, and we're very excited about that because it gives the university, I should say, a Black voice as they're making these key decisions, regarding the future of the education of all of the students. And so we're excited about that. And then, of course, we support all of the university's diversity initiatives. So we're excited to be a part of that initiative as well. Next, I'd like to turn the discussion to the reason why we're all here, which is the Blacklight Speaker Series. And it was actually developed as an alternative pre-COVID. No, actually, when COVID happened, I should say, we were in the process of building on-site events, signature events whereby the Black Alumni Association would be able to get together and have networking opportunities, have award ceremonies, have the ability to conduct presentations, and COVID happened. And so once COVID happened, we had to bring everything online. And so what the board got together and decided that the best way to approach this would be to build out a series, not a one-time event, a series, a flagship initiative whereby you can expect that there will be an event happening. Last year, it was every month. So we started in August and all the way through actually December, we had events. And let me tell you, that was challenging. Because as you can imagine, and I'm sure you all are well aware, it takes a lot of work to pull together these type of events. And so we decided in 2021 that we would go to every other month, and that seems to be working out really well. So the series was, again, it was a collective effort. It was derived actually from Shakira Richards bringing it up as maybe this is an option that we can do a networking event online. And so the board got together, brainstormed it, and developed the Blacklight Speaker Series. And the name of the series is actually derived from the function of a black light, which is designed to illuminate things that are not seen with the naked eye or with the eye. You can't see it. And so when Jay Yancey brought that up as a point, it became absolutely clear it was a metaphor for the Black students as well as the Black alums, like our connection to the university. I mean, we felt like, we weren't seen, and to some extent, we weren't hidden. And so this series is designed to illuminate us, the Black alumni, and so that the university and the Loyola community as a whole can see just some of the amazing things that we've been doing, postgraduate. And so the series is designed to highlight the life and the experience of Black alums post-graduation, and then also to provide an illustration, if you will, of how we have taken the university's mission and principles into our lives and into our careers and into our professions. So next, what I'd like to do is to introduce the moderator for today's event, um, Flex Omar. And Flex is actually new uh, to the board. He's been with us now for about 2 months. And um, just like every member of this board, he is an incredible person as well. Um, he jumped right into getting involved in the events and meeting with the, committee vice presidents. He's been very active in those 2 months. When I sent out the notice to let everybody know that, he was going to be a part of the board after he had been approved through the board's vetting process, if you will. He sent me an email back and wanted to know, like, when could he get involved sooner? And so, he jumped right in. And so we're very excited to have him on board, and, and we look forward to continuing to work with him. So just so a little bit more about Flex. Flex is he's a network builder. He comes from humble beginnings. He came to Chicago, and one of his first roles was actually working on the west side of Chicago at the health authority, whereby he was building computer labs, for the west side community. Today, Flex is a co-founder of MALA, which is Muslim American Leadership Alliance. And he is committed to leveraging technology to build networks for nonprofit and social enterprises. But also something equally as interesting about Flex is that, he is a storyteller, and he likes to bring people and networks together so that they can share their stories. And in sharing their stories, what of course people find is that they have something in common, or if they don't, then they have the ability, to understand more, and in some cases to empathize, with other people through storytelling. And so through Flex's nonprofit, Mala, he has the opportunity to do that. So with that, I'm very excited to introduce you to our moderator, Flex Omar. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Flex.
Thank you so much, Karen, for that introduction and your kind words. I know it's only been 2 months, but I feel like I've been here from the beginning, and that's a testament to your leadership and to the other board members. I also give them my gratitude, and also everyone at Loyola University. I'm a proud Rambler. But today is not about me. Today is about Dr. Cory Mitchell. So it's my distinct honor to introduce him. Dr. Cory is the Director of Mission Integration for Mercy Health, Muskegon, and it's a member of Trinity Health. Dr. Mitchell earned a graduate degree in healthcare mission leadership, as well as a doctorate in bioethics and health policy at Loyola University Chicago's Newswanger Institute for Bioethics and Health Policy. Having served in the US Navy and later becoming a research intern at Johns Hopkins University's Bloomberg School of Public Health and a program specialist intern at the National Institutes of Health Institute on Aging, Dr. Mitchell has significant experience working with vulnerable populations, including veterans and persons who are homeless. As an African-American Catholic, his research interests are Catholic healthcare, health disparities, and theological ethics. As a husband and father, Dr. Mitchell is currently seeking to expand his vocational service by entering the formation phase of the secular Franciscan order, even though brown isn't his best color. Dr. Mitchell, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Flex. And thank you, Karen. I gotta say, working with this Black Alumni Board has been amazing. This is an amazing group. There is amazing leadership, and you all ought to be proud of yourselves in the work you've done to date. And I know that you'll do many great things in the future. And my ask to the people joining, to all you participants, and it doesn't matter what color you are or what your beliefs are, that this work of the Black Alumni Board is not just for Black people. It features Black people, but it's for all of Loyola, indeed all Chicago, and even all the world. And if you believe that Loyola is a place where men and women for others are formed, then this work has to be front and center. So I encourage everyone, allies, Black folks, whatever, whoever, donate to this organization, fund this organization. I know I will. I'm going after this, later on in the day, I'm going to take off these clothes, eat some chicken wings, and give some money to the Black Alumni Board. So, and I'm not prestigious. I eat chicken wings. I'm not prestigious, but I am passionate, and I hope that my passion propels you. Hopefully you're already passionate, but if you're not, I hope at the end of the day you will be, and you will go forth and set the world on fire, as St. Ignatius would say.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. And along the same lines, I plan on getting chicken wings after this too. And I do have my peri-peri hot sauce in the office too. Keep it very close. Now let's get into the questions and the discussion. So can you tell us a little bit about, how you got to your journey of where you are right now in healthcare and working as in healthcare mission leadership?
Yeah. So, it was a long journey. It was a long journey. So, as the bio said, right, I started out a long time ago working with vulnerable populations, and even before that, I was part of those vulnerable populations. I experienced homelessness. I experienced domestic violence. My father committed suicide when I was 7, drank himself to death. Substance abuse was a big problem in my family. I've lost family members close to me due to it. And so all that trauma had to find somewhere to go. And what I found healing was when I could focus on helping someone else. I felt my soul returning to me, my self-image and my ability to be efficacious. Because when you're suffering through trauma, right, whether it's racialized trauma or any kind of trauma, having efficacy is something that goes lacking often. And when you can get bits and pieces of that, that's what happens. So as I began to focus on others and serve others, in fact, one of the volunteer jobs I did was in my honor society, was a chair of the International Refugee Society. So that was after I joined the Navy, but being in the Middle East and having experienced that, I had a profound realization that people all over the world were suffering for many reasons and from many things. And so we're all in this together. So in terms of getting into healthcare, it started at Johns Hopkins with a diversity summer internship program, and that started with a lead poisoning research project. And then I was kind of bitten by the healthcare bug, took some graduate classes in social epidemiology and behavioral medicine, and then after Hopkins, did some work at the NIH, ran a research study at Baltimore, looking at 600 and some odd African Americans living in different types of communities, and looking at biomarkers and how health differed, even in the same city, depending on where they lived, including looking at their pulse rates, their heart rates, factors like that. And it's amazing. It doesn't, if you're in a nice neighborhood, your blood pressure is going to be lower. You're going to have less incidence and prevalence of cardiovascular disease, and you're going to have less struggles with mental health. That that study bears itself out over and over again in many different ways and many different times. So when we talk about health disparities, we're not talking about genetics. We're talking about place. So as this sort of stuff kind of baked in my mind, I started to realize that there's a spiritual component of all that work, right? I believe that I had to, God was always a part of my life. And so when I saw the Loyola program, I enrolled for the Healthcare Mission Leadership Program, and then subsequently the doctorate in bioethics. And I was so moved by my interactions with my mentor, still today, my mentor and co-author, Dr. Therese Lysalt, who I hope is out there in the audience somewhere. She was the epitome of an ally. And we can get into that later. But so she was the one that encouraged me to apply to the job that I have now. But along the way, I had interviewed for like 20 some odd mission leader roles. And if any of you know mission leadership, it is really about spirituality. It's about ethics. It's about protecting the Catholic identity of an organization. For Catholic mission leaders, and I am. So, but it is also a very white space, and so I believe there are less than 10 Black mission leaders in America. So we are, as Dr. Lysalt said, a rare breed. And when you're interviewing for these roles, these are executive positions. So these report directly to the CEO of most hospitals. You are a member of the C-suite. And so it's again, very white space. So I probably went through 20 to 30 interviews for these roles all around the country until I finally got the one I got now. But even then, you know, one senior mission leader that I had interviewed with called me after I got this job and said, you know, I got to apologize to you because the reason you didn't get the job I'd interviewed with him was surely because of racism. So I admired that candor and that self-reflection and that courage to speak up and to say, we did wrong. We did wrong. And that owning it, right? That's really a spiritual reparations, if you will. So, so that's how I got to where I am.
Thank you so much for giving us that background. And let's dive into the topic at hand, you know, detoxing from the poison of systemic racism. Now, for most people, you know, we understand what systemic racism is, but what is systemic racism as it relates to urban planning and the current ecosystem that we live in?
Yeah, so I don't know. So like for many of you, I don't know if you've heard the groundwater analogy, right? That if you're staring at a pond and you see one fish float up dead, you say, that poor fish. Then if you see a few more float up dead, you say, maybe there's something wrong with the pond. But then if you go a little bit further in a different pond and you see more fish floating and you started to travel around America and you start to see all these fish floating up dead, you start to finally figure out that, hey, maybe it's in the groundwater because, you know, the groundwater connects all these things, right? And so the groundwater is analogous to systemic racism. It is endemic and it is omnipresent. It is ubiquitous. And so healthcare and ecosystems go hand in hand. So when you talk about urban planning, you know, Oftentimes when we think about African Americans, we think about the projects or, segregated cities, so the ghetto. Um, and often when these cities were planned, not only were they redlined, which I'm sure all of the audience is aware of, um, but they were intended to just solely warehouse people. But when you look at urban or suburban neighborhoods often offer places to recreate, places to educate, places to um, meet basic needs, shopping, entertainment, to flourish. Black neighborhoods, specifically, Black neighborhoods were never intended for Black people or their residents to flourish. They were designed to warehouse. And so, in many ways, they function as penitentiaries. And of course, this has health ramifications, right? Um, you imagine a neighborhood, a Black neighborhood, and you guys in Chicago, many of you, you will have these neighborhoods. You would be familiar with them. The neighborhoods you try to drive around and not through. But imagine that you could take one of those neighborhoods, like our community in Muskegon Heights, right, where you've got high unemployment, record high unemployment. I mean, where only 10% of your residents are actually employed, and when they're employed in low wage jobs, and it's temporary or transitionary. You think about the lack of childcare, educational opportunities, all those things. But think for a moment how if you could turn that city around, what would it look like? So I think of, for you Chicagoans, right, Schaumburg, right? You got Legoland, you got places to shop, and nice houses, and people feel safe, and people in many of your neighborhoods, many of your white neighborhoods, feel like they flourish. They have lives worth living. They have lives of meaning. They have lives that honor their human dignity. Black folks, even in middle to upper income neighborhoods, will find their dignity challenged, assaulted. There's a researcher by the name of Douglas Massey, and Massey and Denton, his co-author, talk about the fact that it is not just a social economic issue, that if it were, then Black millionaires would live with white millionaires and there wouldn't be any problems. But even when you're millionaire status and you're living in mansions, you will see that even there, Blacks are segregated by and large from white neighborhoods. When you're, and I'll just give you a bit of background for me. When I found my house, when I got my house, my house is not the house I wanted. I'm a veteran, so I wanted to use my GI Bill. Well, in the neighborhood that I wanted to live in, they told me, "Oh no, we have restrictions on the lot. You can't build a house here because you're using your GI Bill. You're a veteran." And of course, while on the surface, and you would think, okay, who would want to discriminate against veterans? But this was not only the case in Grand Rapids, where I live, but also in Baltimore. And what we find is that those neighborhoods that were segregated disallowed even veterans to purchase homes in those neighborhoods. Not only do you have redlining and lower property values in Black neighborhoods, but we really start to understand that race that race, that opportunity is structured by race and place in America. It is not a meritocracy. It is structured by race and place. And when we do that, right, when we have residential living patterns that are separate and segregated, where you have haves and have-nots, what you end up doing, right, is you create sprawl patterns that help contribute to global warming, because people, again, want to drive around those neighborhoods rather than drive into them. And if they do drive into them, they're driving through rather than to, and as quickly as possible. And you can't blame them, because the neighborhoods assault every sense of dignity one may have, however you define dignity. And so, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but this is very important to understand, because I think, if we don't really take an ecosystems or an eco-social approach to problem solving, we'll keep missing the boat. We've got to heal our okay, so I'm coming from a Catholic background now. So our sin, our structural sin, I believe when God looks down from heaven and looks at our earth, he can see our sin etched in the built environment in which we live. Our sins are crying out to God, even in the buildings we've created, in the neighborhoods we've created, in all that urban planning. Not only does it cry out to God, but the planet is crying out for care, for concern, for compassion. And so this is a very Franciscan thing, I know, but it is, we are all interdependent. We are all interconnected. And we will either learn to live together or die together, but we will certainly be together.
Absolutely. Thank you for that answer, because it's really important to put all of this, in a context, in terms of like the ecosystem, because your environment dictates, who you become. Karen mentioned earlier that I built computer labs on the west side of Chicago. What's interesting is when I attended Loyola University, I took some of my friends to the west side, but I didn't tell them we were going to the west side, because we would be able to play computer games on those computers. Later on, I told them it was the west side. These are international students, and they were shocked, because what they would see on the news was different from the experience that they had with the community and the people, that they met. But the environment, is not, built and sustained for growth. And that's basically through all the policies that you talked about. Now, how do we even begin to detox from that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think one is, you brought up policy. So,
Yeah.
The work of Ibrahim Kendi has been interesting. And many of you may know his latest book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. But before that, he wrote a book called Stand from the Beginning, which is a much more denser read. It's a much bigger book, and it's packed full of research. Historical research. So, and what you find in Kendi and Stand from the Beginning is that his thesis is racist people don't create racist policies, but racist policies create racist people, racist behavior. And so where I think it's really important to kind of come at this before we get down the road of problem solving, to realize that we're not talking about people, we're talking about policies, and we're talking about policies in a society, in an ideal society. You want your theologies, your philosophies, and your anthropologies to inform your policies and your policy making. Since slavery, or even before slavery in many ways, we have situations, we have, particularly in the West, the advent of self-interest driving policy making, self-interest and fear driving policies that then in turn shape our theologies, our philosophies, and our anthropologies. So we've got it all backward. And so when you get around to the practical problem solving aspects, the quick answer would be policies. But we change racism, we detox from the poison of racism by changing policies. But you can't just attack policies, particularly from a marginalized status, because it's very difficult to do. So what has to happen is, in Catholic principles, we talk about subsidiarity, participation, and association. All these principles suggest that local organizing is where we need to be, because right now we've got threats on our ability to vote. And if we're not careful, us Black folks will be slaves again. I mean, and that's not a stretch. I mean, because really there's a trend, an underlying trend that seeks to dehumanize to the greatest extent possible, just like what happened in slavery, people of color, particularly Black people, and to promote self-interest and feed on fear. And so we have to be mindful that the history is sort of repeating itself. But we also know that historically, Black people have been most successful in combating this kind of march toward evil through its religious traditions. The church has always been an advocate, particularly the Black church has been a vocal advocate and a mechanism to organize. That voice is sadly in America lacking in many ways. We need to reclaim that legacy, that heritage. But Christians aren't the only people that have that. You as a Muslim know, principles of zakat and submission to Islam, peace. Those kind of principles translate universally, and so we need all people of goodwill, right, regardless of your religious background, to say that all human beings deserve environments that affirm human dignity. And anything that subtracts or detracts from that human dignity is an affront to us and to God, to the divine. If we understand the divine as divine love, right, then divine love is antithetical to hatred, to divisions, to dignity denying situations. And so we need to be consistent about that. And when we are, we can start looking at our communities. And there's an example of East Lake, Atlanta, where it was one of those low income, high crime, low outcome in terms of education and employment, high murder rates, poor health outcomes, all that. It was one of those cities that everybody knows and, don't want to live there. And a billionaire investor came in and said, it's not right. It's not right. And he came in, but he didn't come in with a grand plan that he had and all this kind of stuff. He worked with the community, and in that they turned East Lake into one of the most successful community developments that we've ever seen. It is self-funding. It has a golf course where the PGA plays, college NCAA champions are played on a golf tournament that feeds the community. The residents have cradle to college educational opportunities, so they can do all their education and never leave their neighborhood. They went from something like 70% unemployment to 70% employment. Low crime rate now, was one of the highest crime rates in the country. So this isn't pie in the sky type of stuff. It has been done before. We can do it again. We need a sort of a domestic Marshall Plan for urban environments. And this isn't just for Black folks. This is an eco-social approach that will help us all. And I just, out of kicks and giggles, I did an economic analysis of Grand Rapids, where I live. And I found that if Black people and Latinos were hired at the same rate, just at the same rate, not above, but just at the same rate that white people were hired in at, without whites losing their jobs, but without the vacancies we have now, that our local economy would put back into its circulating economy about $500 million, $500 million in basically GDP, local GDP. So it benefits us all, right? We all need to be able to flourish, and if some of us aren't flourishing, then none of us are flourishing.
And that's an incredible, study when you look at those numbers. I mean, the state of Indiana, for example, does trade with the country of India, and that's 1 billion. But you're saying we focus on our own people here, and we can add $500 million. That is incredible. Now, Loyola University is located in downtown Chicago. Now, when my friends, ask me about downtown Chicago, I say it's not real Chicago because you're experiencing basically Dubai, and Loyola is also on the north side. There's a beach in the campus, it's a completely different experience from the west side and south side. Now, how do we recruit, and retain allies that live in these neighborhoods to, come and help us, end systemic racism? I mean, because if they're not part of the solution, then where do we go from here?
Yeah. We all have skin in the game. We just need to recognize that, right? So, in the realization that as Black neighborhoods, the disadvantaged neighborhoods, and Latino and in any disadvantaged neighborhood improves, your local community will improve. And you think about what happens as an ally. So there are neighborhoods that you wouldn't want to go into. You may live adjacent to those neighborhoods. You may live in the same zip code, but your census tract, your census block group is different or distinct, segregated from a low income disadvantaged neighborhood. And if you're that close, when you go to sleep at night, you might hear gunshots. You're always afraid that one of those people may come into your neighborhood and steal something from you, or worse, murder you, or do something atrocious to you. And it's that constant fear of the other, whether it's fear that somebody's going to hurt you, or fear that by giving them something, you are going to be at a loss for something that you've earned, by merit. But the reality is that as allies or potential allies, anybody thinking about being an ally, anybody struggling with this, the reality is that when we benefit as Black folks, you too will benefit, and we can benefit one another without harming one another. This is not a zero-sum game. We can all benefit together. We can all flourish together. And when we do, we're building God's kingdom here on earth. And this is what we're called to, right? As people of faith, if your tradition, if your religious tradition is not advancing humanism, something's wrong. If your faith tradition or your philosophical tradition is not advancing human flourishing, something is wrong. And so that's a litmus check on whatever it is we're doing, whatever we're participating in. And I'll leave it at that.
No, absolutely. No, that was great. Thank you so much. But now going back to Loyola, because we graduated from Loyola, we're Ramblers, we're the Black Alumni Board. How can Loyola as an institution, as a Jesuit institution with a global footprint, help support the efforts to end systemic racism, both locally and globally? Because when I talked to you in the past, you said it's a planetary, issue. Can you touch a little bit upon, what Loyola's role can be?
Indeed. So, as I said, it's important to have an eco-social perspective. So Pope Francis talks about the fact that we don't have two crises, one being a human crisis and the other being an ecological crisis with global warming and natural disaster or natural erosion of our planet. We have one crisis that involves all of that, right? We've got our inability to live together, to love one another, manifests itself in the planet. And the planet, as St. Paul says, is mourning, is longing for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed, to wake up, and know that you're here to love one another and to love God's creation, right? Because this isn't like something we can throw away. If we throw away, we go away. All right. So it is realizing that Loyola, any Catholic university, any Jesuit university, is preparing men and women for others. And when we talk about the classroom and experiences, it's important to have diverse opinions, because what justice looks like in America may look different somewhere else. And having those diverse opinions and those diverse viewpoints really helps shape dialogue. And dialogue is how we learn and grow and make meaning, right? We tell stories, and those stories shape us, and we understand ourselves and one another. And that's a process of growing, not only mentally, but spiritually through encounter. And Pope Francis is big on, having a culture of encounter. And so I think that's where Loyola can play a role. But I also think Loyola can play a role in reminding us to reverse those issues I talked about, reversing our tendency to let self-interest and fear drive policies and our theologies, our philosophies, and our anthropologies. I think we've got to reverse that. And so that requires a lot of intentionality. And that means that you have diversity not only in your student body, but in your faculty, in your administration, and you honor that diversity, because it can't just be numbers for numbers' sake. The people have to feel like they belong and have a voice. And I would tell you, some of the best allies, Dr. Lysol, amplified my voice. That's why I'm here today speaking to you, because of her living into my life. And allies you can be, or potential allies you can be, really powerful proponents of people of color, and you can really move the needle. And it doesn't take a whole lot. I don't know, Dr. Lysot, I might be a little bit of a burden, but but you can do it. And I encourage you to interact with people of color, reach out, learn, grow, ask what you need, and you'd be amazed. And I think you could really come up with some creative things. And Loyola and mentoring programs and all that. I mean, there's just a lot you can do. And really, it is about having the vision for a new creation.
Oh, that's incredible. And that is a beautiful message, Dr. Mitchell. My time with you here is ended. I'm going to give it to Shakira Richards and for the Q&A. And it's a pleasure interviewing you today, Dr. Mitchell.
Well, thank you, Flex. Thank you. And it's been great interacting with you as well. So
thank you so much, Flex, and thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. This was amazing and very relevant and useful information. So we just thank you for your time. I do have a couple of questions for you that I definitely want to get out. So our first question comes from the audience, and it says, "Hi, Cory. Can you share the name of the study you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation and the author of the book, Becoming an Anti-Racist?"
Oh, yeah. So there's the organization that really led the way for the East Lake renovation, right? That group is called Purpose-Built Communities. It is still in existence today. And in fact, if you live in a disadvantaged community, or if you want to engage with one and help it out, just go to the purpose-built, just put in purpose-built communities in your search engine. It'll take you to the site. It's a grant application you can fill out. Or it's not even a grant application. It's an application for assistance. So you designate the community, or you pick the community, you put in that information about what your vision is for that community, and then they come into the community, do some design charrettes, get the community together, hear their voices, and then start to help you put together a plan for changing things. And you can do this at the local level, because again, every bit of change we're going to be able to make at the policy. Racism is a local issue. It feels amorphous. It feels so big that we can't tackle it, but it really manifests itself locally. So to the extent we can, those kinds of projects, purpose-built community, neighborhood by neighborhood, those kinds of things, although they seem small, can really move the needle, one neighborhood at a time. So pick a neighborhood, go to purpose-built communities, get the write up the application, get the technical assistance, and it doesn't cost you a thing. That's the interesting thing. It doesn't cost you a thing. Now, you obviously have to get funders for your project, but they work you through all that. And then with regard to, there's another study by HUD. HUD did a study called Moving to Opportunities. That study showed that just randomizing people into neighborhoods that had green space and felt safe and all that, single mothers, their health profiles were improved, and their mental health, their physical and mental health improved, even though they had no change in their economic self-sufficiency. So they weren't any better off individually, but just by being in environments that were healing, their health improved. So those two studies. And then with regard to I'm sorry, Shakira, what was the second part of your question?
Yeah, it was the author of the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Yeah, so I encourage you to read both of his books. So that's Ibrahim X. Kendi,
right.
How to Be an Anti-Racist, but he also wrote the book before that, which kind of helped set the foundation for how to be an anti-racist. And I think in many cases he references it. So that's Ibram X. Kendi.
Thank you so much. And then I seen one question that actually went inside of the chat. What specific areas of the ecosystem has been damaged by systemic racism in urban Black communities? And I believe you talked some about that, but if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, so I would turn that around and say, what ecosystem hasn't been damaged by systemic racism, right? So you look at the way our healthcare works in this country. Healthcare is a function, by and large, of employment. Although there are, healthcare, policies such as Medicaid, Medicare, those pay obviously, but for many people who are living on the margins, they're making too much for Medicaid, so they're over income for Medicaid, and they're not working in a job that either has health insurance that they can afford, or they have health insurance available, but they can't afford to eat and have health insurance. And you can start to look at parts of ecosystem. Whether you're talking about lead and water, for instance, like Flint, or whether you're talking about, the fact that, death by police in those areas is one of the leading causes of death, according to the CDC, for African Americans, African American males between the ages of 15 and 21. Whether you're talking about, the lack of education or the lack of educational attainment, because a lot of times kids are dropping out well before they hit 12th grade. And so at every single stage, in every single aspect of human life, there are fractures, disconnects in our ecosystem, damage in the ecosystem of being Black. And I think we need a good amount of faith to continue this work. Because if you don't, you can burn out, because it's not a quick fix. It takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So yeah.
And I think now we can turn it over to our president, Karen.
Thank you, Flex. And Dr. Mitchell, this was amazing. There's just so much here, right? And, you brought up the point about the Marshall Plan and actually having a vision for a new creation. When you think about the Marshall Plan and the fact that, basically the US rebuilt Europe after World War II, right? And recognizing that Europe needed help because, it was decimated. And it's the same thing that applies to us here, when you think about allies, really advocating, for change. And that's what it's really all about, is that if you are an ally, you definitely want to, be a part of that vision. When I think about the work that we're doing with the board, that's what we're doing. We're looking to create, we actually have and are creating a new vision, for Loyola's connection, again, to its Black community. So I want to thank you so much. This was very, very informative, and we really appreciate your time today. Next, just to close us out, there's a couple things, so our next alumni event is on August the 18th. There will be more information coming about that. If you would like to get involved, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can, we would love to have you as a speaker, as part of the series. You can become a committee member. There's opportunities that you can utilize your skills and be a part of something great here. So those are ways you can get involved. And so lastly, I want to thank everyone for joining. I know you found this presentation very informative. And if you need more information or interested in knowing more about the board, you can connect with us or contact us at our website here, at our Gmail account. And definitely, please, 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 if you haven't done it already, to follow us on social media. So, through our LinkedIn and our Facebook, the communities are continuing to grow. Thanks to our board members, specifically Dawn and Shakira and the newly created communications committee. So we're very excited about that. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.